Good morning. Aboru Aboye. My name is Baba Anthony, and I am the head awo with Okamran Day Temple here in Miami, Florida. Thank you for joining me for this morning's temple service. And our topic is raising our children with the support of Ifa. I often get a lot of questions about how do I introduce my child to Ifa and Orisha? How do I bring them into this? I know it's good for me, but I am unsure of how to bring them in. What's interesting is that within Christianity, within Judaism, within Islam, within many other faiths, uh, raising their child is an important part of their faith and their culture and their society, right? We raise our children in the faith of the parents. And I think Ifa and Orisha is equally as important and should be valued just as much. The challenge is for us as Ifa and Orisha practitioners is that we haven't been practicing this faith since childbirth, right? Many of us come to Ifa and Orisha as adults and we're trying to find guidance for ourselves. We're trying to organize our lives, figure out which way we're going to go. While we're doing that, how do we bring our children into this? These are all conversations and talks or whatever messages that I try to share with others is that, having our children being a part of what we do as practitioners is absolutely important. Because if this is important for us to have guidance in our lives, imagine how much guidance you can begin to prepare your children for at this point. But a lot of it comes from understanding the messages that are coming from Ifa. Right. If we don't know the messages to share with our families, we don't know the messages on how to raise our kids, then it becomes difficult. And so that's what we have to start to think about. So I'm going to share um, a verse today with a story um, about two mothers and how they raised their children. So think about this story. I shared this particular story this morning with my daughter before she went off to a play date with some friends who were visiting from out of town. And she was able to give me the important points back. And that's what I want. If I can tell her a story and then say, what do you think are the important messages? And she's able to repeat those messages back to me, then I think I've done, a successful part of teaching her a little bit about Ifa at it, and this happens a little at a time, right? I'm not trying to force it down to her to give her hours of study or hours of memorizing or hours of, oh, you need to understand this ceremony. It's not anything like that. I want her to have a grasp of the philosophy, of the ethics. I want her to have an understanding of how she can be a better person for herself and for society. So let's jump into the first story or the story of today. The Odu of today again is Irete Opuere. That's Irete on the right and Otura on the left. The verse goes like this: Ire in the front, happiness from the rear. This was Ifa's declaration to Olokose's mother. The same was also declared to Oking's mother. The two of them were the Olofin's wives. They were advised to offer a bow so that their children would succeed in life. So here we have the story of Olokose and Oking. Two children and their mothers were wives of the Olofin, which is a king or a leader of a town area. And when their children were born, they both went to uh, Babalaos to have a cast because they wanted to know how to raise their children. They wanted to know what they should do in order to support their children so that they would be successful in life. So they go to the Babalaos, and the Babalaos cast Ifa. The Sotu comes out, and uh, they explain to the mothers that the Olofin will at some point um, pass away. Right, his time will come to an end, and it'll be important for uh, him to have a really good successor. You need to raise the children to be leaders, to be hard workers, to prepare for the position. So they heard this message. They were advised to offer a bow, and it was time for them to figure some things out. They left. Now, the interesting thing about this particular story, I should mention, is that Olokose's mother. Olokose was the older child. Olokose's mother was in a place where he, excuse me, did not think it was necessary to offer a bow. He was the oldest child. If we know about kings and leadership, it's always the firstborn child that is heir to the throne. So she didn't really think about it. She kind of just let him grow up any type of way. She allowed him to sleep until noon. She allowed him to, essentially be someone who depended on everyone else to do things for him. O'Keen's mother, on the other hand, she took a different approach. One, she offered it both. And she began a regimen, let's say, for O'Keen that would allow him to be ready. She woke him up every day, let's say 2 hours before the first rooster crowed. That was their alarm clock, right? Roosters crow very early in the morning, except for apparently here where I live, and they crow all types of hours. At 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. We got roosters here in the city of Miami just hanging out. It's quite entertaining. So our king's mother got him into a regiment. He was getting up. He worked on the farm. Once he was done with the farm, he came home. He did his work. He would go to town, do everything. Now, when you looked at these two brothers, what was interesting is that everybody from the outside could see that Olokose was of royal blood because he was treated as such. He always had the nicest things. He always had people waiting on him hand and foot. He was very spoiled. King, on the other hand, was a hard worker, and they actually thought he was kind of like living like a servant. He wasn't someone who was of that royal blood, right? They had their preconceived notions about who he was and what he could accomplish in his life. Well, as time goes on, uh, they live their lives the way that their mothers had helped them live their lives. The day had come. The Olofin had passed away as the Babalaos had predicted. Both wives, they go to have Ifa cast again, right? They want to know the situation, what's going on. And this was in regards to the kingmakers. And so the kingmakers had come and they had spoken to Olokose, because again, he was supposed to be the one to take over. And they explained to Olokose's mother is that uh, we're going to have the king ceremony, the king putting the crown on you and making you the official king in 7 days. And in 7 days, you need to meet us 2 hours before the rooster crows in the special grove, which is about 5 kilometers away. Olokose's mother she was feeling some type of way. She knew this was going to be very difficult because she had not prepared him for this. And Olokose knew it was difficult because he was used to sleeping in. He's like, how can I get up that early? That doesn't make any sense. So they spent the next 5 days waking up. Olokose, day one, he woke up. He couldn't do it. He missed the first rooster crow, and he still found himself. It's very hard. He was dragging, couldn't do it. Okay, day two, tried it again. Mom slept through it. Boy slept through it again. They're struggling. Day three, day four, day five. They got to the fifth day and realized this was an impossible task. You live an entire life as to what you know so far as your body is conditioned and trained to be a certain way. How can you change it in a short amount of time? They didn't know what they were going to do. They were stuck. So Olokose devised a plan. He goes to his brother Okin. He talks to his mom, and she says, "Okay, I agree." And she goes to her brother Okin and says, "I need you to do something for me. I'm going to send you on a mission to uh, visit the kingmakers in the grove. It's about 5 kilometers away. You have to wake up 2 hours before the first rooster crows. When you get there, I want you to gather whatever items they have for me and bring them back so then I can be crowned the king. Joaquin says, okay, well, yeah, sure, no problem. He was just, again, he was like one of those happy to help out. So he goes home and tells his mom. His mother was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, let's go have a podcast to see what Ifa says about this. Now, the Babalaos cast Ifa for King for this venture, and they said, it'll be good for you to go. You're going to be very, very successful, and you're going to end up coming out on top where Olokose is going to regret giving you this mission. It's important for you to offer a bow before you head out on this mission. So King says, okay, and his mother says, okay, no problem. So they gathered their materials, they offered a bow. They did everything they needed to do when it came time, which is just 2 days later. That O'King had to get up in the morning, which he was already used to doing. He got up in the morning, got himself ready, did his work, headed off to the grove to meet the kingmakers. The kingmakers had gathered everything they needed to go through the ceremony process, and they were ready. So as O'King arrives, they were quite surprised. They expected to see Olokose, and they said, O'King says, no, I'm here um, this morning to pick up and take whatever is supposed to be given. Kingmakers looked at each other and they said, well, you are now here in this special grove. We can't end this process without you becoming king or someone becoming king, because now that you've entered this sacred grove, you're now going to become a king yourself. So they did the ceremonies for O'King. O'King left and came back and returned as king um, of the town and the area where he was from. And Olokose forever regretted this decision and the way that he was raised. And so the verse ends. Ire in the front. Ire in the front, happiness in the rear. This was Ifa's declaration to Olokose's mother. The same was also declared to Oking's mother. The two of them were the Olofin's wives, so that their children, they were advised to offer a bow so that their children would succeed in life. Only Oking's mother complied. Oju da, Oju ro. They were the Awo who cast Ifa for Oking, the younger brother of Olokose, when Olokose was going to send him on a difficult mission. He was advised to offer a bow. It is painful. It is regretful. We have installed Oking as the next Oba. It is indeed very painful. So, a child's mother is the architect of a child's prosperity. Oking's mother offered the prescribed a bow, and the child became prosperous. A child's mother is truly the architect of a child's prosperity. A child's mother is equally the architect of a child's wretchedness. Olokose's mother failed to offer the prescribed ebo, and her child became wretched, excuse me. A child's mother is truly the architect of a child's wretchedness. This is an important story for us all of us parents. The verses, this particular verse is about two mothers, but it's for us fathers. It's for anyone who has adopted a child. It's for anyone who's in care of children uh, throughout their lives. If we are people of Ifa and Orisha, it's important that we hear the messages of Ifa on how to raise our children. It's important that we not only seek advice for ourselves, because that's why we're in Ifa and Orisha, right? We seek advice for ourselves, but we seek advice on how to bring our kids up. How many of you are initiated into Ifa and Orisha and You haven't brought your child before Ifa to see what you can do in order to help them grow. I know it's a difficult task. It's hard to understand, and it's hard for sometimes for our children to get the messages, but I promise that each time you study, each time you read a story, or each time you have something that applies to yourself, right? If Ifas tells you that character is the most important thing, that is a message that you should be teaching your children, that character is the most important thing. If Ifa tells you that Ifa wants patience for you in your life, that is a message you should be sharing to your children, that they need to be patient. If Ifa tells you you need to be truthful and honest, right? Truthful in our thoughts, honest in our actions, or the other way around, whatever that means to you all. If Ifa explains that to you, why is that message not getting to your children? Maybe it is. And for those of you that are doing this, that is the goal for us all, right? Ifa and Orisa is not only about offering ebos and then that's it. That's not it. There are advices, there are messages for us all. And it's like a trickle down effect. As we hear a message in a reading, right? I know this happens for me. When I hear a message in a reading for myself, I'm going to sit down with my children and have a conversation with them about this message. It takes some time to think about how to organize my thoughts for an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. It takes time. It's not an easy task because I'm used to speaking a certain way or hearing things a certain way. And now I have to bring my language down to their level so that they can understand. I ask them questions so that I can have them, give me feedback. I try to engage in conversation. We are the architect of our child's success and prosperity. We are also the architect of our child's wretchedness. It's a difficult balance. It is absolutely a difficult balance. We won't be perfect at it, right? We won't have the answers every single time. And that's why one of the things I think is absolutely important is having a community. Because if we can have these conversations with children, groups of children, right, and groups of parents, then that's how we can support each other. Because maybe a parent has something that works for them that we can share with each other. But one of the things I notice is that as Ifa and Orisha people, sometimes we practice alone. We don't seek the opportunity to come together as a community to help build each other up. We've all heard this before, a community that prays together stays together. I truly believe that that is important. How many of us are out there, besides our children, how many of us are out there and only one of us in the relationship practices Ifa and Orisha, and the other one has no idea, no understanding, no thoughts? They may feel some type of way about it too. And the reason why is because they don't have an understanding of the messages. They don't understand the character changes, the philosophy. They don't understand the ethics behind Ifa and Orisha. Two parents on the same page are going to have a profound effect on a child or children. Hear that again. Two parents on the same page are going to have a profound effect on their children. So this is something I want us to think about as we go through the week. How do we allow ourselves to be guided by Ifa and Orisa? And how do we allow Ifa to help us guide our children? How do we allow Ifa to help create a space where our children can have conversations and discuss with us the philosophy, the ethics, all of the things that they need in their life to be successful people? These are all questions I hope that you all are able to answer. I myself, as a temple leader, will work to try to develop something for our people because I think it's so important. If we can find the time to come together as a community, I believe in the end, we're going to be able to raise wonderful children who will then have a profound effect on their friends and allow them to grow with them. It's always that trickle down effect. So let's think about that. Let's work to make ourselves better with the support of Ifa. I hope that you all have a wonderful week. Today is Oshio Batala. Epa Orisa. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful week ahead. And I will see you next week for another message. Aboru Aboye, Aboshishe Ogboato. Many blessings.